First, I would like to welcome Victoria's Jeremy Loveday, who is an award-winning poet, spoken word artist, and community builder based here in Victoria. And he has lived and he's worked on the territory of the ʷəŋən speaking people for a long time. Yeah? Like, how long?
Since I was 4.
Since he was 4. So we won't give away his age and tell you how long that is, but it's a while. Jeremy has helped hundreds of young poets to find their first stage here and in other cities. Jeremy has appeared in publications such as CBC, National Observer, CV2, Funicular Magazine, Best Canadian Poetry 2023, and Claudia, a leading Brazilian magazine. Jeremy was the 2020 winner of the Zaccheus Nyce Memorial Award. And after more than 2 decades of performing poetry and winning slams and heading teams and basically just being an advocate for poetry, he has a new book, a brand new first collection, maybe the Starling. And I'm so excited. I have a history of reading with Jeremy. We've actually been in a debate, spoken word poetry versus written word poetry together. We've been on CFU radio together. We've read here. Yes, I'm so excited that you're here, Jeremy. Please come to the stage and shower us with poetry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks so much to Kieran and Planet Earth Poetry for having me come and share some poems. In 30 years, that is an amazing feat for a reading series. So congrats to everybody who's pulled that off through love and passion and hard work for that long. This is, it's my first book of poems, and this is my first time reading from this book of poems. It's kind of a pre-release. It's not actually available fully yet, but I'm so excited to share it with you. It's called Maybe the Starling, and it starts with an epigraph, just a quote from James Baldwin that is, "There is reason, after all, that some people wish to colonize the moon and others dance before it as an ancient friend." Becoming pollinator. Today, the truck dumps manure in the middle of my street. A chickadee with puffed feathers sings wholly and incessantly for a mate to join them in the small yellow box that unfamiliar hands built last year, before I knew that the otter swims home each evening as the sun sets behind the Souk Hills, before buzzsaws moved in next door with their spark breath and frozen stutter thunder, before the sun glinted off sawdust spiraling in updrafts over hot concrete, when the manure wasn't even cud yet, just field, seed, unswallowed in none of 4 stomachs, back when I worked so much I lost the calluses on my hands, when my garden was no more than a litter box for stray cats, when I forgot to bury my face in each flower I passed. Now I bumble and sniff, listen as the jackhammers are drowned out by birds that may have always been here, but all I heard was heavy machinery. And so today I give thanks for the truckload of shit that has kept me home long enough to notice and even get annoyed by the little bird and the big song that we are singing together. This one's called Not About the Birds. Every morning I throw bird seed from my front step to a flourish of songs and wings that swoop and peck, and I think we live well together. This poem isn't about the birds. On TV, I'm tracking a for-profit rocket as it hurls billionaires through space. It looks like magic, feels like betrayal. How dare we leave this planet? I feel the feeder that hangs outside my living room window. My cat and I perch and chirp through the glass. I curse the rats that scurry the seeds into their nest, my walls. They think we live well together. My New Year's resolution was to ask better questions. As I write this, my cat lopes forward, a sparrow dangling from her mouth. This poem isn't about the bird I buried in my yard or the bell I later placed around her neck. The bird is not a metaphor, though I am responsible for her death. I want to thank this book. I had 2 editors that I worked with, so I was very fortunate to work with John Barton, who worked with me as I put together the manuscript and kind of mentored me through that process and helped me translate my spoken word to the page in terms of trying to capture the energy of it without losing that energy, but get it on the page. And so I was really indebted to his guidance. And then through my publisher, Right Bloody North, I had the opportunity to work with Alessandro Naccarato, who is also the poet who first put me on a stage 23 years ago in Montreal. So it was cool to have that full circle moment. And we've been friends the whole time. But this one's called I Almost Punched Elvis. I almost punched Elvis right in the cheap seats, which is to say, I felt the learned heat of someone else's idea of manhood, protection. What I mean is it wasn't really Elvis, just a set of veneers sweating out the hits, gyrating frantically, haphazardly through his second show on this unremarkable Tuesday in Nashville. While singing Love Me Tender, he began to kiss every woman in the audience, aisle by aisle, with his wife taking photos. He didn't ask before leaning in. And the girls I was with were 15 years old, and I was their camp counselor, which is to say that if he took one puckered step into our row of plush seats, I'd knock the blue suede shoes right off of him. I couldn't wait to impersonate the savior, to put on a performance of masculinity worthy of a king. Thank you. This is, I had, there's no real way to say this. My uncle died right before I came here. And I got that news this evening. And he was, very influential in my life. It's not surprising that he went, but it was surprising that he went today. And so I'm a little raw arriving. So it makes me want to read this one. And it's called On Homecoming. When I was growing up, he was the only person I'd ever known who had published a book. It was not poetry. It was, but it was The Economist's Book of the Year in the 1990s, one year. So it was he supported my rabble rousing despite not agreeing with it. This is called On Homecoming. My 90-year-old neighbor, Sylvia, is gardening again. She has returned to her body enough to move her slippered feet from bed to the front yard where her hands touch soil like it was the first soil. Hands become water, a photograph, all the times her grandchildren visited, and it was joyful despite the noise. And I can confirm the volume button is broken on those kids, as it should be. Pack of rambunctious throats open with laughter. Tornado limbs breaking things with accidental velocity. Over the fence in summer, I hear rules to games that are made up as the game goes on, like all rules, I guess. But that is not today. Today, she is planting daylilies that will work a whole year to ready each flower to open only for a single day. The fullest expression of hope. The work of joy, Sylvia is tending to it. Her walker cast aside, her pajama knees in dirt, fingers vining into tendrils, twining up her wrists, curling around her hospital bracelet, toes bracing, becoming taproot, becoming anchor, fiber shoots webbing out in search of nutrients. She has placed a foxglove seed in her belly button. Carefully, she covers it with soil and mulch. Sylvia is gardening again. Even though her house is a rental, even though she will never see the blossoms, even though her grandchildren will not trample these flowers and feel sorry, but keep playing as they should. And the garden will grow each year with foxgloves. The foxgloves will reach the sun, flowers stacked taller with Sylvia and her smiling, daylily face making up the rules, whispering the game will continue, although it is not a game, and that this year she will be beautiful. She's going to bloom at night while no one is looking. Hey, I have a book. All these poems are in it. This one's called Praise. Can't stop writing about my garden, my ex-lover, all the ways I'm complicit in the wilting. Fingers search features of a new face. The face is mine, so are the fingers. I am learning to love myself fully, but there are poems that I'm not yet able to write. Praise those poems and the shadows they walk with, and the star that makes them dance. And I do live this praise, and that's why I'm having a surprise nap to celebrate the first sunburn of the year, in which you say to me, tell me which gift is more beautiful, a handful of dirty bulbs dug from your mother's soil or a fistful of tulips freshly cut. Of course, it's a rhetorical question. I'm writing a poem, not a questionnaire, but I've become a middle-aged man who writes a poem about my garden. And what could be worse? Another friend died today. I got impatient, started digging my knuckles into the shit to see if the potatoes had sprouted. The daffodils droop and drop their sandcastle yellow petals to the grass too, and what could be worse? I guess I could go back to not noticing the beauty, even as it leaves. Thank you. I'm gonna do, this one's, like a lot of these poems are, I started this book thinking I was writing down my spoken word poems, and I was gonna capture them sort of as a catalog of, all the poems that I've done over the years, and sort of for posterity more than anything, and something to, sell at shows and share with friends. But as I started the work, I realized that isn't what I was doing. And so a lot of this was written for the page for this book. And I grew a lot through that, because it's a whole different thing to write for the page. And I find it actually way more vulnerable to think that these poems will go off in the world and I can't control how you hear it or how you read it or how someone sits with it. And so that's been a very interesting process and something to think about. Whereas, when I'm sure some people feel the opposite. When they get up here, it's a lot more nerve-wracking than when they publish a poem in a journal or in the book. But it's just it's a different process, and it's a learning process. Anyways, this is a spoken word poem not that I wrote wrote down. It's called Tug of War. On both knees, I strike the pose of someone searching for a wedding ring, or the lover's contact lens. Yes, friends, I invite you to picture me hunched over beneath the cherry tree, which is in full and rapturous blossom, like my shirt, actually. Full and rapturous blossom, below the inside joke called the sky, and all the spycraft and space junk, and maybe a billionaire or two adrift in their egos or whatever. Because friends, the reasons we're all here is the reason that I'm on my knees, attracting questions like, hey, do you need any help? I don't, but you gotta see this. And they lean in, half interested, and see nothing at all. But right here is an ant, shoulder pressing an alfalfa sprout, the very same sprout that escaped my mouth seconds ago. And yes, there are many ants, but this is the one. It heaves and attempts to drag the errant and under-celebrated sandwich topping, bending it into a U shape before it springs back straight. And by this point, friends, I'm sure that you understand that I'm really into it. Like, I'm cheering the ant on, like, you can do it, your nest is this way. And the other ants arrive on the scene and they're trying to help, but at least I think they're trying to help, but I don't speak black hole or complex chemical compound or whatever it is to brings them to bump heads before bustling off in just different direction until it's just the ant and me. And being the helpful guy that I am, I lift the opposite end of the sprout, coaxing the little ant. And when I lift, the ant lifts too. Maybe we'll be a good team. But before I know it, we end up in a tug of war. And the ant pulls and pulls, and I don't want to embarrass the little guy by letting him win, so I tug back just a little. And friends, I know what you're thinking. Holy shit, what an asshole for trying to steal such a feast. Finders keepers and all that. And then my mom, whom I love very much but haven't hugged in a year, speaks from behind her sandwich. She says, "How's your garden coming along?" And I reply, and when the satellites and I look back down, the ant and the sprout are gone. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What a treat. That's a book to buy, folks. And I wanted to mention too that Jeremy was instrumental in the creation of our Youth Poet Laureate program as well. He worked tirelessly for that. I'm so grateful that you're here and reading from this book. This is just fantastic. Our second featured reader has come all the way from Vancouver. Her name is Fenn Stewart, and she's the author of 2 poetry collections, Better Nature and Women and Roosters, which is the one she has tonight. Will you read from both of them, or?
I don't know.
You don't know? She doesn't know yet. Fenn is a former editor for the Capilano Review. She holds a PhD in social and political thought and teaches literature and writing at Capilano University. Fenn lives with her kids on the unceded territories of the Squak, Wimesh, and Musqueam and Sulil Watal First Nations. Please welcome Fenn Stewart.
Thank you so much. I've been told that I'm not good at mics, so if I'm somehow, not miking right, just wave at me. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so impressed. 30 years, that's so amazing. I was saying to Kieran earlier, I was in Toronto for a while. Actually, I was also in Montreal 23 years ago. Is that what you said? 23? Yeah. We must have been there at the same time. So I was in Montreal, and then I was in Toronto. And a lot of my friends who are still in Toronto say that COVID just killed the live poetry scene there completely, which is sad, because when I was there, when I was a youth, there was a lot of it. I really enjoyed that, Jeremy. Thank you so much. I wasn't even thinking about it before, but Starlings, and then my book is sort of about roosters, and I really enjoyed your reading, and I really wanted to thank you for your chickadee reference, and also for the hatred of space travel. That was, thank you. Yes. I'm with you, or the poetic you who hates space travel. How dare we leave the planet? I'm often accused of hating space. It's not that I hate it, it's fine. It's just that we don't need to go to it, is my view. Yours may be more nuanced, but that's mine.
Yeah, that sums it up.
That's it? Yeah, awesome. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna read, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get rid of this, because the table's a little bit too big. I'm gonna just grab this, so that I don't go over time. So my newest book, it came out in November. It's called Women and Roosters. And it's a reference to a line from Galen, who about 2,000 years ago said, "Triste est omne animal post coitum praeter mulierum galumque," which obviously means Say it with me. All creatures are sad after sex except for women and roosters. You knew that, obviously. Okay, so this book it's sort of quasi-autobiographical. It is about COVID times, the beginning of the lockdown. I was camping on Denman Island, and then later on, the lockdown lifted, but I actually got long COVID and was super sick for a couple of years. So even though the lockdowns ended, obviously for many people, and for many people much worse than me, COVID did not end as quickly as the lockdowns. I don't think I have anything else to say. I'll just start. The earth's on fire, so I go camping. Wood smoke and damp sea air. I know you hate camping, but it's a thing I do. You're gonna have to get used to it. After I've been on the island for a few weeks, I get obsessed with Dungeness crabs, and I spend hours by myself at low tide looking for them in the reflecting water. They halfway dig themselves into the sand, like flat and dull red plates with eyes and brains. The sky and water and air are all the same gray silver color. It's May, so the crabs are all trying to mate, or, not just trying, but actually pulling it off. And so when I find one, it's usually two, with one on top grasping the other firmly in 6 places. I pick them up gently with my stainless steel spaghetti tongs, and they stay clasped and look up at me with small, small eyes with brains behind them. And I look back at the crabs, and the crabs are looking at me, and then I carefully put them back into the sea, and they, still clasped, slide quickly down and sideways underneath some purple, slow-floating sea lettuce or whatever it is. I never eat any of them. I tell myself that it's because they're not big enough. 6 inches across is big enough, but only if they're males. Or else I tell myself it's because I better not. My cousin, she lives on the island full time. She hasn't eaten meat since she was 3 and accepted sausages from our grandmother. She wouldn't like it. So I carry around a thick splinter of cedar that I believe to be 6 inches long, and I measure it against each crab to see how big they are. I check the lines on their pale bottom shells to see if they're full of eggs. If they are, you can't eat them. But really, could I turn them upside down and, with all their small legs waving at me, strike heavily across the midline with an axe, like you're supposed to do, and then pull the 2 sets of legs in half so all the guts fall out into a bucket, leaving just the pale meat in the legs and the ribboned cartilaginous bits inside the body skull? Walking back up from the beach. On the right-hand side of the road, there's a small dead deer in the ditch, which is otherwise filled with daisies. The deer must have got hit by a car and tossed there, or else, having been struck on the road, made its way painfully into the ditch. Looking at this small dead deer, I think about how in school they made us read Earl Burney's David. How he falls off a cliff, I think, hiking. He makes his best friend kill him. I think a mercy killing. I can't remember how he does it, how he does him in. Maybe he puts his hand across his mouth and holds his nose closed. Young men in forests, broken bodies, virtuous bodies, the most grievablest lives, the most gloriousest accidents, the very best of ends. Later I learned that Earl said he didn't read Pauline Johnson, which I guess is why we didn't read her either. In English class, we traced the Northwest Passage with Stan Rogers, seeking one warm line through this land so wild, and thought ourselves like David, brave as a mountain backdrop, noble as a wilderness suicide, inevitable, like holidays on European patios. The next day I'm walking again and somebody's dragged the small dead deer out of the ditch and back onto the road. I don't know who though. Not a raccoon, surely. And there aren't any coyotes here, nor wolves. A cougar, maybe? Though wouldn't it have eaten more? And do they scavenge? Would you scavenge, really? If you looked like that, and screamed like that, and jumped like that from trees onto living bodies, and bit into their spines? And now someone's driven over the skeleton and the jaws in pieces. The deer skull's full of young and unground teeth. I didn't know maggots could run so fast. The vulture's face is reddened by the eyeless deer in the daisies. A vulture's such a sour bird. I haven't heard from you in days, and I don't know why. Didn't you say that we'd still talk? I'm sitting and watching the birds on the thistles, on the thistle heads. I'm sitting on the thin porch made of 2x4s, looking out over the thistles, which are as tall as me, and at the birds that are eating them. I want to say, without you, I'm a joint stool. Without you, I'm a rude mechanical. Without you, I close my eyes so slowly like they do in Sligo, but you're not here, and nobody's watching me to see how quietly I take it. So it's no use. I want to say I marvel at how sad I am without you. I marvel at how sad I am without you. Sad like a thistlehead, entirely eaten by a bird. No, sadder. Sad like a thistlehead, completely left uneaten. Sad like a black and yellow thistle-eating bird eating thistles. Without you, I'm listing sideways a bark that's been shaken. Without you, I'm cross and itching. I liked it better when you hadn't gone away. I liked it better when you were mad. I want to put my foot down, but there's nothing there to stand on, like a 2x4 that rotted out of the deck my uncle's fixing with leftover bits of cedar, gone like a rotten tooth from a head that wants its tooth back, gone like a man with a wife, gone like the sleeping bag from the back of my dad's car in high school. I'm writing to stop myself from writing you. I should do something useful. I should keep myself occupied. I should get some hobbies. I should take up carving branches or twisting grass. I should cut you out of my life like a saw cuts a circle out of a piece of wood, and the circle drops to the floor, and there's splinters and a rough edge marking where the circle used to be, and you push the bits through with your thumb, and then one of the splinters stabs your thumb, and a perfect round drop of blood appears. I'll cut you out with a saw. I'll cut out your careful shoelaces, your shoulder blades, the specific amount taller than me that you are. I'm going to make a book of all the texts I wrote you in my head when I was running and then never sent you, and then I'll make sure nobody ever reads that book. This is the closest that I've ever been to unrequited love. It isn't great. It's actually pretty bad. Without you, I'm like a three-legged stool without one leg and then without the other one too. So just the one leg, not two-dimensional enough to rest like a penny does when you drop it and it spins for a while, but then it settles down. I can't settle down. If I was still writing to you, I'd ask, what do you think about labor and time? And are you absolutely sure that 3 women at once is too many? I'd like to write you a book and name it after you, not your real name, something funny like Travis. There's like 8 Travises here, aren't there? I apologize. And on the first page, I write, sorry and thanks. It needn't be a very long book. One night, a long, long time ago, I had a dream in which you were played by Geoffrey Rush, and you/Geoffrey Rush told me that you don't love me anymore. And this made it easier for me to understand that you don't love me anymore, even though you don't look anything like Geoffrey Rush. Neither Geoffrey Rush right now, nor how he looked 30 years ago. More recently, I had this dream that you cut your hair and you shaved off your beard. I've had it twice at least. And in the dream, this makes you happy, and it makes me sad. And then last night, I dreamed my watch's face got smashed on the floor of an elementary school girls' room. And in real life, I don't even have a watch. There's some guy camping in the woods beside me. He's often there. His tarp is orange. He listens to a lot of Metallica. He makes a fire every night, and sometimes it's really large, even though fires are usually illegal these days, because it's almost always a drought. Forest fires like the one that ate Jasper this morning, unless it's an atmospheric river like the one that trapped my dad in Hope for 3 days with no highways in or out and no electricity either. And the river washed the Coquihalla out in like 3 places at least in that valley where everything's named after Shakespeare. I like the rain more than the fires by like a lot, but that's probably pretty wrong of me. I don't know this guy's name. I don't really like it when he's here. Only one dog is howling in the woods now. I don't know what it's howling at. There aren't any coyotes here, and to get to any wolves, you'd have to cross the Sound, and then a small highway, and then a large highway, and then strike out across a very large forest. Once Dad and I saw a wolf print on the beach at Pachena Bay, and he measured it with his jackknife. You can tell it's not a cougar print because of the shape. You don't see claws when it's a cougar. Remember how I told you that my brother got lost in that big forest when we were both small, and we couldn't find him for hours and hours, and then the park rangers were looking for him? And at least in my memory, even a helicopter was, though maybe I made the helicopter up. And I asked Dad if he was scared, and we were standing there on the long, long beach with the open ocean to the right of us, and the salal, and the funny stunted pine trees on the left, and he said, "No, I'm not scared." And I've never been so sure in my life that he was lying, and I was so mad at him for that. I've never, ever been so mad before or since. Did he think I was stupid? I've never been so mad in my whole life. How could he not be scared? If he wasn't scared, he was either lying or he's not very smart. And I know he's smart. But my brother was clever too, even then, even though he was only 5. And he had the idea to walk towards the sound of the sea. And so we walked towards it through the forest for many, many hours. And then a man with a dog found him on the beach. And we saw them walking towards us from a great distance. And it was wavy all across the sand, like a mirage. It was all wavy and indistinct where their feet met the sand. But he became clearer as they walked towards us. And so we found him. He found us. He wasn't lost at all. Yeah, I know I told you this story before. Now I'm telling it again. I think that's 15 minutes. Yeah.